Right, so here we have, I moved a lot of stuff around. We wanted to make sure that this was a little bit more garden-esque. We wanted to see what would grow first off, but with all the neighbors, and we're trying to keep the space clean, so we had to weed whack a lot of it. But as you can see, it's still very much a very diverse group of flowers. We have an ash tree here that I'm wanting to turn into a bonsai, indoor bonsai, so the ash borer doesn't get it. Got a great mulberry tree here, and you can see that I've had to keep pruning it to keep it off this deck. But over time, it's actually going to grow into a living fence. And these morning glory are just doing fantastic. You can see it's already up over the trellis here, which is nuts. It's just gonna keep wrapping around. And they're gonna have gorgeous flowers. I'll show you the blooms in a minute. So here we have a sweet potato that has just crowded out this petunia like mad. It's gonna end up killing the petunia, but I'm really impressed at how well it's done. Rosebush has been budding out more. You can see this is a Star of India, and all of the hydrangea cuttings are just doing fantastic. All those new leaves in there. Petunias right here, and you can see they have just come back time after time, about 4 times now. The lavender is just now starting to flower, and you know, we always keep some on hand because one, it's kind of fun to use in cooking, but we really love the way it smells. Dried lavender is just the best. And this is Mariah's fern. It's actually leafed out much more than it has before. We thought it was almost dead, but it's really come back, and we're pretty happy about that. And so these gladioluses are just now starting to flower, and I'm excited about that. Let me see if I can find a flower bud for you. The way that these work is that the flower actually comes out of the middle of this plant. So you can feel where the flower bud is. So this one is not emerged yet, but you can see here the flower bud actually emerging from the top of the gladiolus, and we'll see some that are farther along in a minute. These are petunias. They have also come back. And this is my favorite because it's the sunflowers, and you know I love sunflowers, right? You know, I planted these maybe, I don't know, about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. And they finally are flowering, and they are gorgeous, attracting so many pollinators. And they also make great bouquets. One of my favorite flowers is the sunflower, and this all just came from literal bird shit. So it came from the feeder over there, and you can see the birds have just eaten that clean. They have just absolutely destroyed what was in that bird feeder. But you can see on the ground that all of what they eat turns into great soil. Actually, birds need to be back in the suburbs in order to help increase the diversity of all the soil and the plant species. So this sunflower is one of the larger ones here, and this is the largest. You can see that the bud is just now opened on this, and these petals are turning yellow, and eventually they'll leaf out into something like this. And inside, all of these, you can see them, they're kind of like speckles. So these are actually the ovaries of the plant, and they're actually going to be the things that produce the sunflower seeds that you eat. So here we have the oak, and you can see that they're actually putting out new leaves. I'm going to have to repot this. It's getting crowded out by a lot of the flowers that are in here. We have a couple more gladioluses, but you can see here that this one is just about to start blooming. So that flower spike that came up, it's separating out into the different flowers, and they're just now peeking out here. And for one, that's, if you want to see what one actually looks like, they're massive, absolutely massive flowers. They are not native, but they are gorgeous. Then we got some violets here. This is another oak tree that's leafed out. And then here are the onions. And these are the onion flowers that have been pollinated, and so they're done. This is actually what green onions come from. If you've ever had green onions in a scrambled egg or anything, you just chop one of these stems off and go to town. And underneath, once these start to die off, I'm actually going to start harvesting the onions for the food. Here we see this is a pussy willow, and the Japanese beetles have been pretty rough to it, so we're going to move it away and hopefully find a better place for it. But we're really excited because you can see that it's actually started to branch out from the initial stems. Inside the sunflowers, you can see the rest of the wildflowers that are starting to bloom now. We've got cosmos, a couple forget-me-nots, and you know, I'm not sure what the name of this one is off the top of my head, but it's one of Mariah and I's favorites. And here we see a pink gladiolus that's just about to start blooming. I'm really excited. And this is really fun too. So this is a yellowwood tree, and it's a really rare tree to have in Kentucky, even though the Latin name actually is one of the only plants to have the word Kentucky in it, because it's a native tree of Kentucky. It's bright yellow wood inside, and it has these pea-like flowers that then turn into like pea pod looking seeds. Look at these pawpaw seeds. They're finally starting to leaf out. And these are this batch in particular are the seeds that are from Kentucky State University. So these are some of the best cultivars of pawpaws in the entire world. KSU has a great program, and hopefully we're going to be able to interview someone from them in the future. This is a persimmon tree that oh wow, 2 persimmons. You can see the seeds still on that one. But these were actually from persimmons harvested from the parklands of Floyd's Fork. And I figured that if they have a good variety, a good cultivar, why not spread that to other areas of Louisville? Oh, here we have the hostas that are blooming. And hostas are also a non-native species, but they are just gorgeous. I love the flowers. Here we have a mulberry tree that's coming up, as well as a walnut tree. You can see the differences in the leaves. This is actually one leaf. It's called double pinnate, or no, it's just called pinnate, because you can see that even though it's one leaf, there are all these tiny leaves on top of it. And honey locust, it's actually even smaller. A couple vines, and we're actually going to plant these hostas in the ground because you can see that they've stunted with how small the pot is. And this is really interesting. So we went to Aldi and we got a swing for the neighborhood kids, because there are a lot of kids 5 and under that live around here, and unfortunately with the way Louisville's made, if you don't have a car, there's no way to get to any of the parks and any of the very nice amenities that may be on just the other side of 264. So, you know, having something here for the moms and for the grandparents and for the children that don't have access to some of these things, it's really nice. You can see that I've actually trimmed up, I believe this is an elderberry bush, but you can see how I've trimmed up the bottom here. I found a lot of litter underneath, and children and dogs were playing underneath it. I wanted to take it. So all the shutters and the fence were painted, and then we got the start of this mural. And you can see I put the base coat of white on as primer, and so I'm going to paint the middle purple and gold, and probably put purple and gold accents on either side of that. And then here we have different tree species that were donated. by the city. I'm really excited because there's a large amount of diversity, and all the sunflowers that we put underneath to help shade the soil have really sprung up. And we're just so fortunate that we have the Wyndham here who have helped us along, and really none of this would have been done without them. And so you can see how big these sunflowers are getting, but more importantly, you can see all this new growth that's coming out on these branches, which means that this tree is doing very well transplanted here, which is really surprising because there's only about 3 inches of dirt before it hits asphalt. But all of these trees are actually doing very well. And so the sunflowers, not only do, if they don't get cut, that is, they do a great job of shading, but they also help break up that really compacted soil that is really prevalent in urbanized areas. You can see here, this is all Johnson grass that I cut down, and it mulched pretty well and have sunflowers growing in it. 2 swamp white oaks. And then we have a downy service berry here. I've tied it to some mulberry twigs so they stand up a little bit straighter. You can see that it's starting to look a little bit nicer. And then some wildflowers that I've planted just to brighten up the space. And I've had to mulch this a lot because you can see how sunken in this place is with potholes. So that means when it rains, all the water likes to collect right here in the pothole. So it's not actually doing the trees any good because the water actually diverts straight to the lowest point, which is in the middle of asphalt. So here is the newest tree I planted. This is a red oak followed by a black willow right here. And I'm excited to see what happens here because this area does get inundated very easily. You can see all the litter here, condoms, plastic bags, nip bottles. You know, part of the reason that we see so much litter in terms of like just liquor or just food in general is because the only place to get food around here is the convenience store. So, you know, it always comes in plastic packaging. There's no way to really get away from the fact that it's for convenience. And so that doesn't always mean healthy. That doesn't always mean cheap. You know, because a lot of people pay for the, you know, higher price at gas stations, but you know, they really need to do something about having access to adequate amounts of food. No matter where you live, you need access to food, and good food, nutritious food. And you know, you can see just from these, you know, like, look, we got Taco Bell hot sauce, we got a nip bottle of something. And then what else we got? Oh yeah, some wrappers for, you know, White House cigarettes. We got Grizzly, dip can. You know, it's not the best, right? Something can be changed. That's a cabbage white butterfly. And he's actually nice. He does pretty well in urban areas, and you can see that he's just going around to all of these wildflowers that are popping up. And listen, you know, if we didn't have the wildflowers, this butterfly would definitely not be poking his head around this alley. So it's kind of like if you build it, they will come kind of deal. And you can see how big these pokeberries are getting. All these flowers at the top, they're ripening. You can see they just go down the line here into these big berries that the birds will absolutely love. And look at these sunflowers. So the soil was a lot more compact than I thought. So the sunflowers actually only got to about maybe a foot high before they're gonna bloom. And they are gonna bloom. So I'm really excited to see in the next couple weeks what a giant field of miniature sunflowers will look like. I think that might be a nice trend to set, right? And so we moved the patio table inside. We got these 2 oak saplings that I'm probably going to replant or maybe turn into bonsais. I'm really excited to see what will happen with those. And then this gladiolus. It's really come along. You know, I think that's it.